Good
Hello,
evening,
everyone.
everyone. Good morning, or oh my goodness, here we go. Good evening, everybody. The time is now 5 p.m. on Tuesday, January 11th. I would like to call this meeting to order of the Policy and Governance Committee. For those of you that may not know me, my name is Rahila Ahmed, and I'm the elected District 5 representative on the Board of Education, as well as the vice chair of this committee. We can start with introductions from everybody that's on the call currently, starting with Mr. Cerrone Ruiz, board members.
Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. My name is Alvaro Cerrone Ruiz, and I'm our student member of the Board of Education.
My name is Judy Mickens Murray. I'm an appointed board member at large.
Good evening. I'm Sonia Williams, board member and the vice chair of the board. I represent District 9.
Thank you, colleagues. We'll move forward with introductions from board office staff.
My name is Anise Ellis, board assistant.
Good
Brandon Cooper, interim chief of staff.
Good evening. My name is Mia Barton. I'm the district liaison.
Wonderful. And then we can move forward to introductions from members of administration.
Good evening. My name is Valerie Irvin. I'm the board liaison to the CEO.
Good evening. I'm Robin Welsh, the Director of Compliance and Ethics.
And good evening. My name is Sally Robinson. I'm the newbie in the group. I'm the new Associate General Counsel in the Office of the General Counsel. And just with the chair's recommendation earlier, just a little bit of background. I come to Prince George's County from Baltimore City Public Schools, where I worked in various capacities since the year 2000. So I've done a lot of work over the years on policy work. And so I'm really looking forward to working with this committee and with Brandon Cooper and his team, and just really excited to get to work. So thank you.
Wonderful, and welcome, Sally. I do want to offer we have one board member that's an observer for the majority of this meeting, a guest for the majority of this meeting, but will be presenting at one point in the agenda. And so board member Boozer-Strother, if you'd like to introduce yourself as well, you may do so.
All right, thank you so much, Chair Ahmed. I'm Pamela Boozer-Strother. I am the District 3 Board of Education member and also the chair of the Climate Change Action Plan Focus Work Group, which is on the agenda today. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, y'all, we can move forward to item 1.3 on our agenda, which is adoption of the meeting agenda. So may I please have a motion to approve the January 11, 2022 meeting agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes and the agenda is approved. We'll move forward now to item 1.4, which is approval of the committee meeting minutes. May I have a motion to approve the December 9th and the November 16th committee meeting minutes.
I'm sorry, but I haven't seen them. If I have them, I need to read them. I apologize.
I move that we table them until the next board meeting. I'm sorry, the next committee meeting.
Okay,
And I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to table these meeting minutes until the next committee meeting, the next committee meeting. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes and the meeting minutes for December 9th and November 16th have been tabled to the next Policy and Governance Committee meeting. Just want to make a note for staff to please make sure that that is reflected in the agenda for the next meeting. We can move forward, colleagues, now to items 2.1 and 2.2 public comment. We actually don't have any registered public comment speakers this evening. And so we can move promptly to item 2.3, which is a status update on public comment for draft policies. Colleagues, I wanted to put this on our agenda because just to provide the public an update and provide y'all with an update that that we have extended the due date from Thursday, January 6th to Friday, January 25th to submit comments for the 2 new policies and the 4 policies that are pending rescission. And so those for folks as a reminder, the draft policy, the 2 new draft policies are inclusive environments for LGBTQIA+ people and draft policy for Indigenous peoples land acknowledgement. The 4 that are suggested for rescission are public school choice transfer option, adult education tuition waiver, senior citizens, and No Child Left Behind, as well as study habits. So those are the 4 that are pending rescission. So all 6 of those policies are going to be extended for public comment until Friday, January 25th. Our policy essentially says that they need to be up for at least 2 weeks, but doesn't have a limitation on the extension of that. And so we're doing that to allow for more folks to participate since the time period that it was out was during the holidays, where many folks may not have been as tuned in to school board matters and policy matters. For members of the public, if you would like to comment on these policies, you can check the Board of Education website and click on the link that says comment on Board of Education proposed policies to let us know your thoughts on those matters. I see, Ms. Robinson, do you have a question, a point of comment at this point in time?
Yeah, I was just looking at my calendar over my shoulder. The 25th is a Tuesday. And I think you were saying a Friday. So is that Friday the 21st or?
Good question. Take a look. My apologies. I think Tuesday, the 25th is good.
Okay.
Leave it for 2 more weeks, extended from today. I might be going back on my word. Hold on 1 second. Board staff, when is our next committee
The
meeting?
25th is the next meeting, so I think we have placed it as 21st to give time for us to
Okay,
get the comments over to you and review before the next meeting on the 25th.
okay, so we'll extend it to Friday, January 25th. Please make sure that that's reflected on the PGCPS website and other correspondences regarding this matter to staff. Thank you. Okay, y'all, and thank you for that catch, Sally. Appreciate it. We can move forward, colleagues, unless there's any questions on that status update. We can move forward to item 3.0, which is our discussion and specifically around the climate change action plan focus work group in general, as well as a letter of support. And so board member Pamela Boozer Strother has joined us this evening to present us a climate change action plan letter for support that she would like consideration of this committee. So Ms. Boozer Strother, the floor is now yours to introduce and present the letter and also make any requests that you would like of the committee.
Yeah, thank you so much. Great to be with everyone this evening. I think many of you know that the PGCPS Board of Education Climate Change Action Plan Focus Work Group has been very busy this year on meetings and research to be at the stage where we are to draft a PGCPS action plan. The really critical thing about the PGCPS action plan is that it feeds into and supports the county's climate action plan. And the county's Climate Action Commission, which was founded by the county council, and the lead county council member serving on that is Council Member Tom Dernoga from District 1. That county commission plan is a couple months ahead of PGCPS, and that's by design because we knew that we wanted to support the county's vision and climate action. PGCPS was represented by Donald Bell on that commission, so we had a direct voice and from the PGCPS side, and then Donald has also served on the Board of Education's action plan. So there's a lot of alignment there. What I would like to propose is that the Board of Education send an official support letter of the climate action commission's plan ultimately to be, there's the sample letter is in board docs, but I would like us to send a letter, of course, by name to each of the 11 council members directly, asking them letting them know that the Board of Education, through the our climate action work, is in support of the commission's plan. The county council does need to vote on this plan at a future date to be determined. I know that our letter would probably be officially approved at the February 24th board meeting, and I think that timing is probably still fine. I certainly is still waiting on information from the county council about when this is on their agenda. So that is the current letter. I certainly think that administration, may also want to consider a PGCPS administration letter, or I don't know if the board and administration have combined such letters in the past. That certainly could be a pathway, but I know we have a little time to make some edits and to have a final version well before the February 24th meeting because of the increased meetings of the Policy and Governance Committee during this time of year. So with that, that's my presentation, and I could take any questions.
Ms. Buser-Strother, before we go into discussion, just to be pointed here, the request is to support this letter and to recommend that the full board, recommend to the full board that we sign and send this letter to the county council. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Let me try and see if we can get a motion on the floor before we start into discussion. So is there a motion to recommend to the full Board of Education that the board sign and send this letter to the Prince George's County Council?
I move that we, go ahead, Miss.
No, you go
Member.
ahead. You're fine. I'll second.
Okay, I move to accept the letter pending any slight modifications and send it forward to the county council.
For board approval. Right.
For board approval. So
Okay.
can I revise? I just want to make it clear.
Yes, go for it.
I would motion to accept the letter pending any slight modifications for moving it forward to the board for acceptance to move forward to the county council.
I
Okay.
second.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor to accept this letter and have it go to the full Board of Education for consideration, inclusive of any minor changes. And it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this item?
I have my hand up.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to just congratulate Board Member Buser-Strother on the Climate Action Committee. It was very diverse in experience and knowledge, both internal to PGCPS, internal to the county, and external to the county. I was very impressed by the wealth and depth of knowledge that went into going through the work. And because of it, it definitely has heightened my thoughts around climate action. And it's in the forefront of my brain. Whenever I see something in the news, I sort of think about some of the discussions that were had at the Climate Action Committee. And so I just wanted to thank her for pulling together such a diverse committee. The presentations were amazing, the ones that I had sat in on. Just some of the presentations were, I liked it because it was sort of STEM, and engineering and, scientific, but it was very, very informative. So I just wanted to congratulate Pamela Buser-Strother on this effort to bring this forward and bring it forward to the Prince George's County Public Schools to make it a part of how we operate in the future. So thank you, Ms. Buser-Strother.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair, and we really appreciate your contributions on the work group as well.
Wonderful. Any other comments from members of the committee? All right, if not, we have the motion on the floor. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you so much, Ms. Booster Strother, for joining, for presenting this information to us, and we look forward to bringing it forward to the full board.
Yeah, again, thank you all so much for the time. And I guess I will say one plug for the Climate Action Commission's plan. If you have not had a chance to actually read the county's plan, it is really great. I mean, it'll take you hours to absorb. I could tell you, attest to that. But I want to point out one thing that's wonderful about the plan is the very first goal is to have an annual conference for all leaders in Prince George's County, elected leaders, agency leaders, to learn this plan and learn climate action and be experts on behalf of the county. So I know that that type of education is, of course, a great alignment to PGCPS. So I will just close with that, and thank you again for having me this evening.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ms. Boozer Strother. Colleagues, we'll move forward now to item 4.0, which is policies to review. We only have one policy on the docket for today, and that is draft policy 0107, ethics regulation. This policy was tabled during the December meeting, and so we will be discussing and reviewing this current policy to adhere to the state law, as well as any comments from committee members and staff. So if Mr. Cooper, board staff, Mr. Cooper, could please review the revisions and provide a brief overview of the draft policy for the committee once more, that would be greatly appreciated. Mr. Cooper, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Committee Chair. So just it's been a long while we had this policy, so I think it would be prudent just to go back over how we got here today, and then we can take questions, and I also ask my administration colleagues to also chime in as well. This policy was included in Dr. Goldson's recommendation in June 2021 to revise this policy because it needed to be updated to match some of the provisions that were newly enacted in state law. And so in August of 2021, as we were reviewing the policy, we realized that there were sections of it that are not compliant with state requirements. So that's when we reached out to the State Ethics Commission's General Counsel, and he let us know which sections were missing and that it was not similar to the public ethics law. And he also offered his help in revising the law. And of course, we accepted that. And so since August of last year, I've been working with Mr. Calhoun, who's the General Counsel for the State Ethics Commission, and also working with Valerie Irvin, as you know, Robin Welsh, Tammy Turner, Dr. Goldson, between August and November on revising the law. And this policy is different than most other policies that come before the committee because there's a state law that's attached to it that kind of sets what's supposed to be in the policy. And so most policies that we review in this committee don't have that kind of requirement. So that's why this one kind of required an all hands on deck approach. And I really want to appreciate the legal and professional services staff who helped revise this policy during that time. And so once we got a review from Ms. Irvin, Ms. Welsh, and approval from Tammy Turner and Dr. Goldson on the policy, we then submitted it to the State Ethics Commission General Counsel, Mr. Calhoun. He also gave his approval. And just want to note there that final approval comes from submitting it to the State Ethics Commission, which is 3 members. But the General Counsel for the Commission is the one who reviewed it previously and approved it. He noted that it followed the model policy. And so that's when the policy was presented to the Policy and Governance Committee in November of last year. And it was presented with the recommendations just to review and not take any action. And so it was there on the agenda for November. It came back to the Policy and Governance Committee, as you mentioned, Madam Ahmed, in December, in which it was tabled, and now it's here for today. The recommendation for professional staff is that it be approved for public comment to go to the board. After it goes to the board, it goes out public comment. It'll come back to this committee, and then for a vote back to the board, first, second reader. And so that is all the highlights I have. There's specific questions. This policy and a bunch of documents have been uploaded to board docs since November meeting. And before we get to Ms. Murray, I just want to see if my colleague on the administration side, Ms. Welsh and Mr. Irvin, have anything to add from the professional services side.
I think you covered it very well. I'll go ahead and let Robin speak to it since she had a little bit more to do with the actual policy than I did.
So the administration is pleased with the revisions that were made to the policy. First of all, because it does adhere to the purpose of the law, which has to do with making sure that assuring the community that we are impartial, that is independent judgment on part of the board members as well as the employees of the school system, that there's no improper influence, that both board members and employees disclose financially their affairs, and that we meet the minimum standards of ethics. And so the changes that were made were based on the major changes that Mr. Cooper made in the policy really reflect the changes that the commission had recommended which put us in compliance with the law. So the areas that had to do with the employment and financial interests of officials and employees, the intentional use of prestige of office of public positions, the financial disclosure requirements, and the lobbyist registration statements were specific statements that we received from the general counsel for the commission, and this policy now reflects what the law requires and what the commission is looking for. So administration is pleased with the changes.
Are there any other comments from members of administration? All right, if not, let me try see if we can get a motion on the floor before we go into discussion. May I have a motion to recommend that the Policy and Governance Committee move this policy forward to the full board at the next board meeting for public comment? Is there such a motion?
When you say next board meeting, I apologize. Hand up.
Yes, Dr. Miller, you have a
Next
question.
board meeting, are you referencing the February board meeting?
Whatever the next available.
Okay, just wanted to be clear.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Is there such a motion? Okay, hearing none, we can just go into discussion, and then if the motion comes therefrom, then we can go through that from there. I will recognize Ms. Mickens-Murray.
Vice Chair Rahila Ahmed, thank you so much. I appreciate the work that everyone has done on this ethics policy. I appreciate the fact that you're bringing us in compliance. But I have one question. Why the changes in the administration section? Why was that section changed? And I just need an answer to that, please. Anybody, somebody.
Yeah, what if any members of board staff or administration would like to
Yes.
respond?
So a couple of the changes were recommended from the general counsel's office. In particular, the general counsel recommended moving the legal advisor for the ethics panel from being her office to being the board legal counsel. So that recommendation came from Tammy Turner's office, the general counsel's office, and that mirrors the state model policy. And so that's where one of those changes came from. I'm looking at the other changes came from board member, the former chair, when he was on the committee, as far as number 4, regarding the panel has no authority into other policies unrelated to the violation of this policy. That was something that was stated from the ethics panel chairman as well, and something that other board members had mentioned. And so that was a clarification, not really an addition, it was a clarification that was added. And then lastly, the number 5, in coordination with the board, only because in the past, there has not been, at least to our knowledge, a public information program. And so the discussion was, it would be good if the board could encourage it, direct it, recommend it, so that there's making sure it's happening. Because that's been the policy for many years, and there hasn't been a consistent public information program. And so adding in there in coordination with the board kind of puts accountability on the board to make sure that that happens, because it was in the policy.
Let me tell.
I'm looking at, oh, one more, I'm sorry. I'm looking,
Okay.
I'm sorry, who interrupted? I'm sorry. Someone was speaking?
Have you finished? I'm trying to.
Oh, I was going through the one more edit. There is a part about the ethics panel shall promptly transmit a copy of the complaint to the respondent. That's also pulled from the model policy. So it's a mixture of model policy requirements, recommendations from Ms. Turner's office, general counsel's office, and also recommendations from board members as well.
Well, let me offer my concern. My concern is in the model policy that I have, it references, and it's difficult for me to go from one policy to the other policy because of we we changed, I guess cosmetically, the outline. So the outline in the model policy uses A paren, 1 paren, and then when I come over here, I'm on number 3A. So if you can, Mr. Cooper, follow, it would be helpful. In the model policy, it says under 2I, the board shall provide, the panel shall identify other counsel to assist the panel in the matter. We are putting that burden on the, with the change, you're putting that burden on the school boards, our attorney. I see that personally as a conflict. If that's not a conflict, someone has to help me understand that, because I see the attorney for the board to give us advice in any and every situation that we require some additional legal insight. If our board attorney is involved at the very beginning of an ethics discussion, allegation, I see us having to hire an additional attorney to give us advice. That doesn't make sense to me. And when I read the, on page 322 of the model, I don't see it codified the way you just described. I really don't. It says the Board of Education attorney shall assist the panel. Well, I like the part that they're assisting the panel. And then if they need additional assistance, the panel can choose another attorney. The board just pays for it. I think that's sufficient. So if the administration's general counsel disagrees with that, I need to understand why.
And if I could, yep. So to that point, again, the model policy, as you mentioned, and I guess it's good. We'll go start to the numbering section. The numbering is what was already inherent in the current policy. And so we tried to just make changes that were needed to make it compliant. And so the reason numbering is different is just because of that reason. We tried, as we always do, to make minimal amount of changes as possible to make it compliant with the state law. I just want to highlight that the reason why the numbering is different a little bit. And then to your second point regarding the legal counsel, again, the model policy does state that the board attorney, board legal counsel, is the one that provides assistance to the panel in carrying out its duty. And the current policy has it as the PCS general counsel. And that was her recommendation, was to change it so that it's the board legal counsel, so that it matches what the model policy says. And to your other point regarding what happens when there's a conflict, the current policy says the panel shall request that the board appoints other counsel. And again, this was changed from the
Where
current
do you
policy.
see that? I don't see that. Where?
Oh, in the current policy?
No, in the model policy. Where do you see that? Help
Yeah, I
me
was
to
stating-
see it.
Yep, and I was stating again, that was in the current policy. And the recommendation that we got from general counsel's office was to change wherever it says her office to put it on the board legal counsel office. If that makes.
So in essence, what you're saying is that the administration's general counsel made a decision, and I hope it's a recommendation, that the board counsel take on additional duties. I guess I'm looking for, where is that opportunity for the board to have that discussion?
I'll let Ms. Wells say it. Yes, all this is recommendation. That's what we're here today for, is to recommend to this committee. So all these are recommendations. I'll let Ms. Wells speak for the office. of
Okay,
General
that's
Counsel.
fine.
Okay, so I wanted to first point out exactly what Brandon said. It was merely a recommendation. Okay, we because it is your policy. Secondly, the recommendation was based on the fact that it was the understanding that the board's counsel, that the board actually wanted the board's counsel to be the one that was basically working with the panel instead of hiring someone outside, which was, I think, recent incident. So it was that the understanding that caused OGC to make the recommendation for it to be the board's attorney.
I appreciate that. Now that brings clarity for me, but I don't support that position. So, Madam Chair, I really believe this is a conversation that the board needs to have before we move this policy forward? Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments, Ms. Mickens Murray. We will move forward to Ms. Williams. Ms. Williams, if you're trying to
Thank you.
speak, you're on mute. Okay.
I was trying to get the button. So I just have a question around property and living accommodations. With the new additions, we speak about property that's owned and property that if you have a second home. And so I think that we should indicate also rental properties, because if someone is not owning a home, they still have a financial obligation to someone or some entity that could possibly be have a financial relationship with PGCPS. I think it's important that we indicate not only the ownership of property, but also the obligation of rentals that that we have to, I guess, share in our financial disclosures. Also, so I'd like to have that considered as an addition to the policy. Also, I think that, can you tell me if there are any removals of items from the policy? I see the greens are the additions. Is everything else just the same as it was before? Can you confirm that there has been no removal of narrative from this policy? And if there is, please show that with a red line strike through, because I could not determine that. I just have a concern about the home address, where it says that it references putting the home address and then making sure that it doesn't become public. On the financial statement, there is an opportunity to put the property identification on there instead of the home address. I think it's very important that we are very mindful of keeping the addresses of board members confidential the best we can. So those are all my comments on the policy. And with that, oh, and I just want to piggyback on what Board Member Mickens Murray was conveying earlier regarding the conflict of interest that we could potentially find ourselves in if our legal counsel is supporting the ethics panel. The ethics panel, they do receive other ethics complaints that do not involve board members. And so I can understand the ability of the board's legal counsel to provide some guidance, some legal guidance to the ethics panel. But should there be a situation where the board counsel who helps the board to understand legal issues, if there were a situation where the ethics panel is looking at something that directly affects the board or board members, then I believe there would be a conflict, because then we have to determine if the board's counsel has the ability to provide advice to the board or the individual that could be impacted by that, and also provide advice or guidance to the panel. And so it would appear that the board counsel would be supporting both sides of the argument, and therefore there would be a conflict. In that, if that were the case, I think that we need to put that in the policy to say how it would be handled. Right now, it's silent the way it's written now, and then we would have to interpret or decide or make a policy change to something that, we know from experience that we may come across. So I think that this policy, although we're meeting the requirements of the model policy, I think based on our experience and what we know, there needs to be some additions added to this so that we can make it for Prince George's County. The model policy in my mind is what they'd like everyone to have at a minimum. And then each individual board can add to it. As long as it doesn't conflict with the model policy, we can add to it to make it a policy for our individual county. So I would suggest that my motion would be that we send this back to staff to make some modifications and work with the general counsel based on our experience in the recent past. Should there be some additions that we need to add to make it PGCPS, a model policy for PGCPS? That's my motion.
There's been a motion to send this policy back to staff to make some additional changes. Is there a second? Ms. Mickensbury, are you seconding?
Yes, I'm seconding. I couldn't find the button.
There's a motion that's been made and seconded, and we can continue discussion on this item. Before we go to another board colleague, I do want to recognize, I see Ms. Welsh and Mr. Cooper have some comments, so you both can go ahead, and then we'll go to Ms. Mickensbury.
Well, okay, my final comment about the
Ms.
policy.
Mickensbury,
Oh, wait.
I was going to say, I'm going to allow Ms. Welsh and Mr. Cooper.
And that's
to
fine.
continue to-
That's fine. I'm okay with
Got
that.
their hands up for a while. Go ahead, Ms. Welsh.
So I did want to also reiterate that, I mean, if it is the board's desire to have Office of General Counsel be the attorney that advises the panel, then that absolutely, is fine. But I will point out also, just as Board Member Williams just pointed out, that if you use the board's attorney and they provide guidance to the panel, but there is a conflict of interest in the sense that there might be some legal advice he had provided board members, and now we have an ethics complaint, then you have to end up getting another attorney, because this policy does not just relate to board members, it also relates to all PGCPS employees. This very same thing can happen with the Office of General Counsel. So therefore, there could be a situation where the General Counsel provided guidance or was involved in some way and absolutely has to step out and not help the panel because of a conflict of interest. And then another attorney would have to be hired to be able to do the work with the panel. That's all I want to share.
Thank you. I just had 2 points just before I forget them in response to some of the comments earlier. And one is similar to Ms. Welsh, just highlighting again, with 2 points. This model, steering too far off the model policy is unsure, because again, we have to get it approved from the State Commission. So I just want to make sure board members understand that there is, unlike other policies, even other model policies, this law says it has to be similar to the state ethics law. And so just want to highlight again on this issue, we're kind of talking about 2 things. The model policy says that the ethics panel is assisted by the board attorney. And then I think to the second part, which I think is more to the point of what Mickensbury and Ms. Williams are talking about, is what happens when there's a conflict. And just to point out again, the current policy states that the board shall appoint other counsel. There's a conflict. We changed it to match with the board attorney shall appoint. And I'm hearing the points and comments and edits that neither the board nor the board attorney should be involved in appointing other comments. So I want to make sure I'm clear on that. And I'll just make the last question is, when we do submit more comments, if they could be provided in writing, because it's going to be, I'm trying to take notes now, but I really would recommend if the motion could be amended or however board members provide their comments, if you can provide them in writing, that will allow staff to be able to really revise it, and we're not coming, make sure we capture all your edits. So again, this is a recommendation from staff to the board members. And if you have any edits, just similarly as you do the budget questions, have them submitted in writing to us, and we'll be able to really make sure they're incorporated in the next version of this draft.
Welsh and Mr. Cooper. We'll go to Ms. Mickens Murray for round 2.
Thank you. So you can tell we're all kindred spirits because we're all honing in on the same thing. The legal counsel it says in the draft that the board's counsel will appoint another counsel. I do not support that either. I think the autonomy should be with the general counsel's office to select another attorney from someplace and not the board's counsel. The board's, our counsel can still assist, but I will put it in writing. I respect Mr. Brandon Cooper. I promise you I will put it in writing what my concerns are. And then finally, Mr. Cooper, this is for you, I guess, and our staff. We need some cosmetics here. We need some page numbers, please, on these policies so I can keep them straight. And in the future, when you give us a policy and there are changes, can we have a narrative of what those changes are so that I don't spend half the night like I did last night going page by page through a policy? I would appreciate that. Thank you so much.
We'll move forward, Ms. Williams for round 2.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to agree. I agree with Ms. Welch's comments that because ethics not only has to do with could possibly have something to do with board and could possibly have something to do with the administration, I think that we should definitely have the ability, and we need to have that stated clearly how we'll do that or the expected outcome. And I don't think that our attorney should be involved in making that appointment. One, because if this is an appointment, it may, the work may cost more than the $25,000 that we're allowed to solicit without bringing it to the board. If we could possibly, on a regular basis, have something like a on-call services for legal counsel for this situation. If we don't need them, we won't use them. But I think that what should be codified in this policy is that a on-call attorney will be available if board counsel or general counsel could not guide and support the ethics panel. And I think it should just be that simple as that. We don't have to describe in the policy how it would be done, but I think that we should state, should there be a conflict, that an outside attorney will be brought on board. And how it could be done is we could have a RFQ sent out just for on-call services for legal support. And if we need to go there, then we could pull the trigger quickly. Just some thoughts. Thank you very much.
Williams. And then we have ex officio board member Miller on the call as well. Ms. Miller? If you have something to say, you may say so.
Oh, well, I was just going to offer a suggestion, but I'll send it to Brandon. But I think the board would designate appropriate legal counsel if in fact there's a conflict. And if general counsel needs to intervene, then they would be the ones to select the legal counsel for us so that there won't be a conflict of interest relative to our legal counsel and the outside counsel providing advising on a particular issue.
Okay, thank you, Board Member Miller. Colleagues, seeing no other hands, there's a motion on the floor. The motion is to send this policy back to staff to make additional changes. And that motion has been moved and seconded. There has also been a request to ask that if there are whatever recommendations are coming from board members to please have that sent over in writing to staff to assist. And so I want to make sure that that is also not part of the motion because the motion has been made and seconded, but noted in the minutes and a request that we can hopefully move forward as colleagues if this is a motion that moves forward. Yes, so with that, we can take the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. And Mr. Cooper, I see your hand up.
Well, no, I know it was a very complicated discussion. Just want to highlight again that the recommendation to have the board attorney do the assist the panel was from the model policy from the state and not the general counsel's office. Just want to make sure we clear up that it's from the model policy in the state that says that, not general counsel's office. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Okay, colleagues, we are moving forward. Yes, Ms. Ellis.
I did not hear the vote from Mr. Saron Ruiz.
I think there was no abstentions, no.
Yeah.
All right, so we can move forward, colleagues, to item 5.0, which is a legislative update. And so we have the MABE legislative update and 2022 Maryland General Assembly. So what we'll do is we'll kind of have this in two different pieces under this agenda item. The first half is I'm going to allow some space to Ms. Mickens-Murray to provide any type of update from the MABE Legislative Committee, since she is our representative to the MABE Legislative Committee. Once that occurs, then I will provide some information about the upcoming general session and then yield the floor to administration and board staff to talk about the upcoming session. So at this point in time, I'll yield the floor to Ms. Mickens-Murray to provide us with her update, and then we can go from there. Ms. Mickens-Murray, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Ahmed. This will be a joint presentation from myself and Ms. Irvin, if you don't mind. Appreciate that. I have really enjoyed representing Prince George's County on the MABE legislation committee. There seems to be a breadth of knowledge, a breadth of information that I'm going to appreciate. Understand that I'm a newbie there, so I am learning and I appreciate learning. Yesterday, we've had two meetings. The first meeting was December the 13th, 2021. The second meeting was January the 10th, 2022. In the meeting yesterday, there was a full bill report of the education-related pre-filled bills, which largely include reintroduction of bills previously considered. There was also a bill about bullying. And thanks to Ms. Irving, who captured the essence of that bill, we were able to send some information to Mr. Cooper, who has agreed to work with Ms. Irving to ensure that we meet some deadlines. The deadlines for the bullying policy, we need to finish by March 31st, These dates that are in this document are from the revisions to that document over time. We're in the 5th year, so it's time to revise it again. And that's what we have asked Mr. Cooper to work with Ms. Irving to do on behalf of the board. We need to provide a final copy to the state by March 31st. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Irving to go over the pre-filled filed bills. I'm sorry.
Good.
Ms. Irvin.
Thank you. Good evening. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Ms. Irvin.
Okay, great. It was a pleasure joining Board Member Mickens-Murray at yesterday's MABE's Legislative Committee meeting, and what MABE as a 24-member committee did was to work on some pre-filed bills that were filed last year. And the bills that I'm going to go over, MABE has decided whether to support or not support, or to support with amendments. So I'm going to begin with House Bill 68, which is a bill presented by Delegate Watson from Prince George's County. It's the Interagency Commission on School Construction, Systemic Renovation Projects, Eligibility. This bill would require the Interagency Commission on School Construction to consider renovation projects, regardless of cost, as eligible for funding from the Supplemental Public School Construction Financing Fund and the Supplemental Public School Construction Facilities Fund. This bill is about systemic project funding. And it reads that the Interagency Commission on School Construction shall consider systemic renovation projects as eligible for funding from the Supplemental Public School Construction Financing Fund and the Supplemental Public School Construction Facilities Fund, regardless of the cost of the project. And MABE voted to support this legislation moving forward. The second bill is House Bill 84. This is a bill from Delegate Ruth, who's from Baltimore County. This is a bill called Crimes on School Grounds Application. And this bill specifies provision of law prohibiting and penalizing disruptive and threatening behavior on the grounds of or in the home of an employee of an institution of elementary, secondary, or higher education, but it does not apply to students. And this bill was amended in the Senate last year. The bill sponsor believes that it will eliminate criminal statutes relating to students. And the bill is based on the belief that students are being criminalized in the state's education article. This section of the education article would be repealed by this bill, eliminating the criminal provisions. And MABE voted to support this bill with amendments. The next bill is House Bill 136, sponsored by Delegate Kerr, and MABE voted to support this bill with amendments. It's the Education Public and Non-Public Schools Seizure Action Plans. This bill would require a county board of education to require at least 2 personnel at each school be trained in certain seizure recognition and response methods, requiring MSDE and the Maryland Department of Health in consultation with certain stakeholders to develop guidelines and a training program for school personnel on the healthcare needs of a student diagnosed with a seizure disorder. MABE sees this as a mandate that would require nurses to train non-medical school personnel. This is considered a high standard of medical care. And there are a finite number of students with seizure disorders, so MABE believes that it doesn't require a system-wide training of staff. So MABE will support this legislation with amendments. The next bill is Senate Bill 162, sponsored by Senator Hester. MABE has voted to support this bill with amendments. It's Public Schools Cybersecurity Guide and Training Course Development, Implementation, and Reporting. Whoops, hold on, I just lost my space. Okay. This bill would require the State Department of Education, the Behavioral Health Administration within the Maryland Department of Health, the Maryland Center for School Safety and Department of Information Technology jointly to develop and publish a cyber safety guide and training course to be implemented in public schools beginning in the 23-24 school year. This training would be online. MABE has an issue with this bill because it is an unfunded mandate that would be costly to school districts. So MABE is going to support this with amendments. And finally, House Bill 146, sponsored by Delegate Moon from Montgomery County and Delegate Atterbury from Howard County. MABE has opposed this bill in the past and it will oppose it this year as well. The bill is reportable offenses and student discipline alterations. This bill would alter the definition of, quote, reportable offenses, end quote, of a student who is disciplined by a school district. The bill has been reintroduced and was vigorously opposed by MABE last year. The bill sponsors believe that exclusionary discipline facilitates the school to prison pipeline. They believe that a lack of confidentiality stigmatizes students. Those are the 5 bills that were discussed yesterday at MABE's legislative meeting, and there were more than 220 bills, I think, that were pre-filed. And so there's a long list of legislation that MABE is going to take up. I think it's more than 40 on the list that we have provided to this committee and other board members. And so we have our work cut out for us. There were people who told us this would be a light legislative session because it's an election year and it's going to turn out to be probably the opposite. So I really appreciate being able to collaborate with Board Member Mickens Murray, this committee, and board staff.
Thank you so much, Valerie. Vice Chair Ahmed, I think for my learning, how should I approach bringing things to this committee that we need to have input from the public on? Because I think there may be some opportunities that we need to hear from our constituents.
A good question. I don't know that we have had a procedure to do that, other than if a committee takes a position on a bill or legislative updates, there's, I guess, a couple of different options that we can do. When the legislative update is up on our committee's meeting agenda, public can provide comments at our committee meetings. So that's an
Okay.
option. I think another option is if we decide as a committee to make a recommendation for a position on any type of bill, that will go forward to the board and it'll be on the board meeting agenda. And so the public would have the opportunity to be able to comment on that being on that agenda. And so those are the couple of ways that I think of. We don't have a process similar to the public comment process that we have for policies. So I did want to kind of make that clear, but before we move forward, I just want to confirm completion of the report for Ms. Irvin and Ms. Mickens Murray, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. Thank you.
awesome. So just a reminder to colleagues before we kind of jump into discussion or any questions that folks might have. Reminder that this year's General Assembly is going to commence tomorrow, January 12th. And so we are meeting on a more frequent basis to keep on top of some of the legislation that's coming forward and addressing those accordingly. So at this point in time, do any members of the committee have any questions or comments for Ms. Mickens Murray or for Ms. Irvin? I see Ms. Williams, you are recognized.
Thank you, Board Member Ahmed. Thank you, Ms. Irving and Board Member Mickens Murray for your presentation of those bills. 220, it sounds like, from Ms. Irving's experience, that's a lot to be pre-filed. I know in the past, it seems like we would have, 30 and 40 bills that would be presented to us around education. And so is it your impression, Ms. Irving, that we can expect something like that to be presented to us, as our legislative update?
Absolutely. I think what we just presented to you were the pre-filed bills that MABE had been following since last year. And there are a few more bills, that maybe 5 or 6 more, that came to our attention in the weekly meetings that I have with Mr. Michael Dickerson and Trey Proctor, but there weren't a lot of education bills, Board Member Williams. So we are tracking them, and what we're doing is we're going to use the same template that Erica White used last year, and before her, the same kind of template that Demetria also used. So we're on top of them. We're watching them very carefully. And so as tomorrow's session kicks off, we will be bringing to you the 2 meetings a month, all of those education related bills, so that we can report them back to you.
So what fun. I'm always very interested, just to give you a heads up, about those bills that are specifically for PGCPS. It's always interesting to have delegations, the members of the delegation put forth bills that hasn't been sort of discussed with the board in advance, to get our input. And so I'm always very interested in those. And I'm really interested when, on very few occasions, but it happens, that outsiders will try to put in a bill about PGCPS. So I'm just very interested in seeing those come through. And since I have the floor, I just want to take the opportunity to welcome Ms. Sally Robinson to PGCPS. It seems like we are sort of bringing a lot of Baltimore people to Prince George's County, which is, I think, is a great thing. When I first got on the board in 2014, there seemed to be an exodus from Prince George's County Public Schools, but I'm glad to see that we're, importing people from other school districts. So welcome to PGCPS.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Does that conclude your comments, Ms. Williams?
Yes, thank you very much. Sorry.
Okay, awesome. Any other comments, questions from members of the committee? Okay, hearing none. Ms. Irvin, Ms. Mickens-Murray, thank you so. Dr. Miller, Board Member Miller, as an ex officio member, you are recognized.
I'm using this laptop and I was hitting with my stylus. But anyway, I wanted to know if there be any collaboration. I guess my question would be directed at Ms. Irvin. Any collaboration with the lobbyists and who will be lobbying for the system on certain issues, especially those that come up relative to Prince George's County Public Schools.
Absolutely, Dr. Miller. We are meeting with the Proctor Group every week. And so he has his list of bills that we're going through every week. And as I said earlier, there hasn't been not too many bills heavy on education policy yet. But what we're really looking at are the bills on the CIP and the bills related to P3. So we have to keep ourselves like really out there on the edge of this as people are really watching what Prince George's County Public Schools is doing in those two areas. And there's been a lot of changes already on the way the state wants to manage its CIP and the money that comes into the local jurisdictions moving forward. So we definitely have our hands full on that.
Yeah, I wanted to make you aware of some legislation that will be coming from, I'm aware with Delegate Valentino relative to Prince George. And I suspect that there will be more relative to the governance of Prince George's County School coming out. So I just wanted to know that you would have a handle on, or, be keeping an eye out on that and bringing that information back to us, since you will be, working with the lobbyists.
Absolutely, Dr. Miller. We have already heard there was some legislation out there about Prince George's County's Board of Education. And so we're keenly aware that there are things out there that we're going to be bringing back to you. So we'll be keeping our eyes on that, as well as attending the education subcommittee meetings. As you know, they're going to get cranked up and they'll be once a week. Delegate Proctor is the chair. And so a lot of things get in there that we might not have seen before they end up inside the subcommittee. So we'll be keeping our eyes on those too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from members of the committee?
Madam Chair, I just had one quick question for clarification. You mentioned something about the frequency of meetings. What's your game plan or thoughts around the meetings during legislative time for the committee?
Typically, we have meetings up to twice a month. I'm looking at the schedule now and it's not seeming that way. If there's a situation in which we need to have a meeting in between the meetings that we currently have, then just be aware that that might be something that needs to happen. But in the past, we've had meetings that have been up to 2 a month during legislative session to keep track of bills.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So and typically is it on the same day, like the Tuesday? Because I'll just block it off on my calendar just in case.
I believe that we set it so that we would have them on Tuesdays this school year.
Okay, thank you.
All right, if there's no other questions, colleagues, thank you, Ms. Irvin. Thank you, Ms. Mickens-Murray. We're looking forward to hearing some more updates from y'all as the session goes forward. Colleagues, we can move now to item 6.0. So under item 6.1, you'll see the follow-ups from previous meetings should be posted to board docs upon receipt. And 6.2, in terms of next steps, just wanted to let folks know that the next Policy and Governance Committee meeting will be held on February 15th, 2022 at 5 p.m. You can check the board webpage or the PGCPS website for more information. With that, we'll promptly move forward to item 7.0, which is closing remarks and adjournment. Y'all, thank you so much for a good meeting. We got through. I love that we can move pretty efficiently in this committee, and I appreciate all the support from everyone that's on the call, board colleagues, administrative staff, board staff, and trying to move forward as much as possible for the Board of Education and for this committee. So appreciate y'all. And with that, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Is there a second? No
It's
second?
moved and seconded, yes. Ruiz.
Miss-
second.
Okay, sorry, Board Member Saron Ruiz. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting.
The movie.
Well, I mean, maybe it could be a movie.
That's
We're
cool.
watching some type of movie, right? Y'all already know what's on my mind for after this meeting. Anyways, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.